Hey everybody, Ram Dean in black with you. The UFC is in Australia this coming weekend. Robert Whittaker taking on Derek Brunson in a fight that is very important for 185 pounds. Both guys on a very nice run right now. And when you think of what's going on at the top of the 185-pound class, Chris Weidman just lost. We know that Yoel Romero probably going to be taking on Michael Bisping. Luke Rockhold was supposed to take on Jacare in Australia. Luke Rockhold out, so Jacare doesn't really have an opponent right now. Gegard Mousasi looked pretty damn good in his rematch against Uriah Hall. These guys, in order for them to be a part of that title conversation, there has to be a finish.
Yeah, and this is going to be a pretty nasty fight, a pretty out there kind of fight. I know if you look at this card, you don't know all the names in a lot of people's cases, but there's a lot of action fights on this one. This fight's killer. Brunson, the last 2 years, has fought 4 times. And he has been in the cage for 7 minutes and 14 seconds, and all 4 guys were unconscious due to punches. That's pretty badass. The way he lined Uriah up there, just sort of funneled him into that left hand, that was out there. The heat that he put on our guy Smiling Sam, that was out there. This guy, when he puts his hands on you, you go to sleep. But Whittaker's playing a much more complicated game than any of the other 4 guys that Brunson knocked out. So it's a very interesting game. He can draw Brunson in. He'll be kicking his legs. He'll be kicking his body. He'll be moving on different angles. It's lining up to be a cool one.
When you look at Derek Brunson, clearly you have an athlete working with Greg Jackson's, one of the masterminds, him and Mike Winklejohn, one of the masterminds of mixed martial arts. But on top of that, you do see a creativity from Derek Brunson inside of the cage. Is it important that he has that to mesh with his athleticism?
I think the best guys now and the best guys going forward will have that blend of athleticism and artistry, you know? And he has that. And he's very fun to watch. A guy like this, if he can go and knock out Whittaker, which is going to be very hard to do. Whittaker's a much more complex fight than those other fights. And I know Uriah Hall's very complex too, but Whittaker has a lot more confidence, laser-like focus, which, you know, when you're dealing with Brunson, the big power is coming in on different angles. So you got to be hyper-focused to deal with it. You got to be aware of your space, all of those things. But Whittaker's good at that.
And Whittaker has a win over Uriah Hall, a unanimous decision victory. So he went 3 rounds with Uriah Hall, the guy that's constantly dangerous. So you know that that's a weapon that he's going to use in this fight with Brunson.
He also looked fantastic in round 1 against Wonderboy. Yeah. He was really able to negotiate some of Wonderboy's game as Thompson was coming up. So he's been a good fighter. He's been a great fighter for years now, Whittaker. And he's going to put on a show. This is a really killer main event. From just a strict action and technique and how the games of the two of them mesh together, this is a killer fight.
If you're a part of the team of Whittaker or Derek Brunson, clearly you're telling them it's a very important fight. The goal is to become a UFC champion. If you can't become a UFC champion, you need to get your shot at a UFC title because that's where the money comes. How is the approach fight to fight the same? The assignment, just go out and get a win, do whatever you have to do? Or is it, okay, look, we know how dangerous this guy is. You can't just go out there and be over-aggressive. You can't be as creative as you have been in the past. Here are your assignments. Let's win the fight if you want to get a crack at the title.
Well, none of those 4 guys that he laid out got past 3 minutes, or maybe a few seconds past 3 minutes for one of them. So we got to do that. That's the start, is we got to get past the first number of minutes. How do we do that with a really talented fighter? Do we take a guy and make him play almost open-handed, very defensive? That often doesn't work because your opponent sees your hands are open, sees you're in a defensive posture, and it frees them up to be over-aggressive. What you know, the better plan, or one of the plans that's a little more complicated, is you combine a defensive, really strong defensive assignments with intercepting punches, with which Whittaker experienced from fighting Wonderboy, so that acclimatized him to it a little bit. You gotta hurt Brunson when he comes forward. So it is still a risky game. If you're like, well, I'll just make sure he doesn't hit me, he'll blast right through something, or he'll kick through your arms. So you have to hurt him when he comes forward, which is something you'll see it in gyms now. You see coaches, they get very, very good at working their guy with pressure and bang, landing. It's something most of the good teams are getting good at. It's something Whittaker's really good at. So it's not impossible to see a knockout on either side, not just Brunson, but Whittaker really hurting him for coming forward so aggressively.
Before we go, do you anticipate this is an up and down game for Derek Brunson? When we see Whittaker perform, it seems like a mixed martial arts kickboxing match. For Brunson, just fight him everywhere.
if he can get in deep enough. I think for Whittaker, if you're his coach, you're saying, hey, man, let's see how this guy handles range 4 out on the outside. Get him aggressively coming forward as we kick him out there and intercept him coming in. Whittaker team would like to keep it at this range. Brunson's team would like to keep it knuckles and closer.
A very important fight at 185 pounds. I'm sure we will get a better understanding over the next number of months what's going on in the middleweight division.